Hey beauties, Rosie here from rosypena.com. Welcome back to my channel. I'm so excited that you're here. So in today's video, we're going to be doing another episode of Sewing with Rosie. If you guys didn't already know, I have a full playlist of sewing tutorials. I'll link that here for you guys. But in this video, we're going to be sewing Vogue 9312, which is this really beautiful A-line dress. The fabric that you'll need for this make is a jersey knit, and you're also going to need some 3/8 of an inch elastic. Before we get into the video, I'm going to show you some clips of the finished dress so you guys can get a closer look at this make. But it was really fun, very easy to sew. It's perfect for a beginner sewist. I'm going to walk you through each and every step of the sewing process. And as always, if you guys have any questions, go ahead and just leave them in the comments for me below, and I'll be happy to help you out with this make. Total, it probably took me about an hour to finish everything from cutting to sewing the finished hem and all of that. So it's a very quick make. Really fun to whip up. The fabrics that you'll need, like I said, are a jersey knit. You can also get away with a really lightweight ponte, and then the suggested fabrics on the back call for a rayon, a spandex. The pattern, as well as everything I used in today's video, will be linked in the description bar below. And if you have any questions, like I said, go ahead and leave them for me in the comments below. Vogue 9312 is this really gorgeous A-line dress with a beautiful tie front detail. To make this pattern, you're going to need some jersey knit fabric. Go ahead and fold your fabric with right sides facing, and you're going to cut out each of your pattern pieces according to the directions on the pattern piece. Make sure you follow the grain lines as well. First, we'll need 2 pairs of pattern piece number 1, which is your upper front. This is a piece that is going to tie at the center front of your dress. Next, you'll need 1 of pattern piece number 2, which is your upper back. And this is cut on the fold of the fabric. Next, you'll need pattern piece number 3, which is your skirt front, and this is cut on the fold as well. The narrow curved area is the waistline of your skirt, and then the flared out portion is what gives this that beautiful A-line shape. Make sure you transfer all of your markings from your pattern piece to your fabric as well. Lastly, we'll need pattern piece number 4, which is your skirt back, and this is cut on the fold as well. The very first step in making this dress is to pin your bodice pieces with right sides together along the armhole and also along that center front tie piece as well. So just like you see me doing here in the video, you want to pin these areas. Once you finish pinning 1 pair of your upper front, go ahead and repeat that step to your remaining pair. So one is going to be for the left front of your dress and the other is going to be for the right front of your dress. Next, we're going to pin our skirt pieces with right sides together along both side seams. So I like to place a pin at the bottom of the seam and then at the top of the seam, and then I just evenly pin all the way throughout the side seam. Go ahead and repeat that step to the other side as well. Once you finish your pinning, go ahead and take your fabric to your sewing machine, and we're going to first work on the upper front pieces. So go ahead and sew with a 5/8 of an inch seam allowance along all of your pinned edges on the upper front piece. Make sure you remove your sewing pins as you go, and also backstitch at the beginning and the end of your seams. Now that you've finished sewing both of your upper front bodice pieces, go ahead and sew the side seams of your skirt as well. So again, you just want to backstitch at the beginning and the end of your seam and make sure you remove those sewing pins as you go. Now we're going to carefully trim that 5/8 of an inch seam allowance on our bodice front pieces down to about 1/4 of an inch. Go ahead and just carefully use your rotary cutter or your fabric scissors to trim away that excess seam allowance. Once you finish with that, we're just going to carefully turn our bodice pieces with the right sides facing out. So go ahead and just slip your hand into the bodice front and then just turn that with right sides facing out. You can use a point turner to help you with this step and also to get a really sharp point at that center front tie. When you finish turning your bodice with the right sides facing out, go ahead and just gently press that in place with your iron. Go ahead and repeat that step to your remaining front piece as well. Now that we have both of our fronts with the right sides facing out and we have them gently pressed, we're going to just pin the side seam and the lower edge of our bodice front piece, and we're also going to pin the shoulder seam as well. Then you want to take your fabric to your sewing machine and we're going to baste these in place along the pinned edges. A basting stitch is just the longest stitch on your sewing machine. This is a temporary stitch to hold your fabric in place. Next, we're going to pin our upper front piece to our upper back piece at the shoulder seam. You want to center the shoulder seam of the upper front to the back shoulder seam. So go ahead and just center that in place. Then you want to pin the side seams of the upper front to the side seams of the upper back. But there's going to be 5/8 of an inch extended on the upper back piece. So the side seams are not going to be flush with each other. There's going to be 5/8 of an inch extended on the back piece. And this is so that we can turn that over to create our hem in a later step. Go ahead and take your fabric to your sewing machine and you're going to sew with a 5/8 of an inch regular stitch. Again, just remove those sewing pins as you go and backstitch at the beginning and the end of your seam. Now that we've sewn all of our pin edges in place, I'm going to turn the fabric to the wrong side to create our hem. So go ahead and just press those shoulder seams towards the back, and you want to turn your hem in 5/8 of an inch, and then you're just going to sew very close to the raw edge. Go ahead and take your time with this step, just carefully turning your fabric as you sew. So we just finished sewing the neckline hem, and next we're going to move on to the armhole. I like to remove the front compartment on my sewing machine to help me with this step. So go ahead and just slip your garment onto the arm of your sewing machine, and you just want to repeat that hemming step to the armhole as well. So just gently turn your fabric to the wrong side by 5/8 of an inch, and then just sew that hem in place all the way around your armhole, and repeat that to your remaining armhole as well. Every time you sew a seam or a hem, it's a good rule of thumb to go ahead and just gently press that at your iron as well. If you're doing these steps throughout your sewing process, you're going to end up with a really beautiful garment at the end. So remember, we sewed our skirt pieces together at the side seams in an earlier step, and now we're going to attach our upper front to our lower front skirt piece. So you just want to pin the side seams of the upper front to the side seams of the lower skirt pieces, making sure you have the back of the upper front matching the back of the lower front. Also, of course, you want to have the right sides of the fabric facing together. You want to have the upper front piece slipped into the lower skirt portion, and you're just going to evenly pin that waistline in place. To make sure you're doing this correctly, you'll have the notches of the upper front piece matching the notches of the lower front piece. That's why it's very important to transfer all of your markings in the beginning of your sewing process. Once you finish pinning, go ahead and just take your garment to your sewing machine, and we're going to sew all the way around the waistline with 3/4 of an inch seam allowance. The extra bit of seam allowance is so that we can create our casing to insert our elastic. Now you want to turn your garment with the wrong side facing out, and you're going to slip that over your ironing table. And then you want to gently press that seam allowance down towards the skirt. So you're just going to gently press that 3/4 of an inch seam allowance down all the way around. The tool that I'm using here is just a small piece of wood called a tailor's clapper. It helps to seal a really nice press anytime you're using your iron. So you just want to hit a little bit of steam on your iron and then just hold that wood clapper in place for a few seconds. This is one of those sewing tools that you don't absolutely need, but I do think it makes a difference in your finished product. I'll have that along with all of the other tools I used in this video linked in the description bar below. create the casing for our elastic, we're just going to sew along that raw or serged edge all the way around through all layers. You just want to make sure that you leave about 1 inch opening at one of the side seams so that you can insert your elastic. So go ahead and just start at one side seam and sew all the way around, again through all layers of your garment, making sure that your fabric is laying nice and flat. And of course, leaving that 1 inch opening at one of the side seams. You want to cut a strip of 3/8 of an inch elastic, your waist measurement plus 1 inch. You can also use pattern piece number 5, or you can just use your body to measure out your elastic. Once you do that, just go ahead and use your bodkin tool. This is another tool that I highly recommend. And then you're just going to use that to clip onto one end of your elastic. And then you're going to insert that into your 1 inch opening that you left on one of the side seams. Go ahead and insert that elastic through your casing until you get to the other side. Once you get the elastic out the other end, you just want to overlap those pieces and you want to sew a stitch to secure that in place. Go ahead and evenly distribute the fabric along the elastic waistline, and then you just want to sew that opening shut where you inserted your elastic. You can try your garment on at this point and determine how much of the length you want to hem. Otherwise, go ahead and just press the hem of your garment 5/8 of an inch to the wrong side, and then you're just going to sew that hem in place. Again, just gently turning your fabric to the wrong side as you sew by 5/8 of an inch, or whatever hem you determine. Anytime you have an A-line or a flare garment, there's a really full area at the bottom. So this hemming is going to take a little bit of time. But once you finish with that step, you're all done with Vogue 9312. I really hope you guys enjoyed this tutorial. Make sure you check out my other sewing tutorials as well. I'll have that playlist linked at the end of the video and also in the description bar below. I really hope you guys enjoyed watching, and I'll see you in my next tutorial. Bye guys! Alright you guys, you're all done with Vogue 9312. I really hope you enjoyed this tutorial. Make sure you check out the blog, rosypena.com, where I'll have more photos of me wearing this gorgeous dress, as well as more tips and tricks for you guys to help you along the way. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye guys!